If the last two gospel stories have told us anything, it's that Jesus will ask, how will you answer? In last week's gospel, the sons of a person important enough that we know his name 2,000 years later answered Jesus' question one way. In today's gospel, the son of a person important enough that we know his name 2,000 years later answered another way. Let's compare those answers, but not before I say it again. Jesus will ask, how will you answer? My name is Zac Willette, and I've been both comforted and challenged as a member of this community since the year 2000. Now, it is worth a moment to clarify what Jesus is not asking these weeks. We don't hear him ask, did you do that thing you said you were going to do? The question in these Gospels is not about actions. We don't hear him ask, are you really good enough? The question in these Gospels is not about worthiness. It's not, have you honored me sufficiently? Or even, have you accepted me as your personal Lord and Savior? Jesus's question is not about him at all. The question is about desire, yours. The question, the loving and disarmingly direct question is, what do you want me to do for you? I am going to pause here so that your first reaction to that question isn't your final reaction to it. I just turned a question Jesus asked others long ago and far away into a question Jesus is asking you now, here. As good Minnesotans, or as human beings who maybe don't want to make a fuss or take up too much space, your response might be, oh, I'm fine, Jesus, I'm good. There's definitely someone else who needs something from you more. Like, I don't know, like a child down a well or something. But here is what I learned from years as an ER and ICU chaplain. God doesn't have to triage. Somehow, through the impossible physics of divine love, everyone gets to be first in line. Let me say that again. God doesn't have to triage. Everyone gets to be first in line. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus will ask, how will you answer? What does it mean that in both these stories, Jesus takes the time to actually ask that question? What I hear is him saying, hey, your voice, and even more, your agency, they matter. Your desires and your choices and your hopes, they matter. I don't prejudge you. I ask you to tell me what you need, and I am ready to believe you. That is radical. Jesus, Son of God, joins us where we are, as we are. And what does it mean that both of these stories take place on the road to Jerusalem, last week's gospel and this week's gospel? Well, lest we think it is a fun field trip, Mark's Jesus lays it all out like that friend that we all have who likes to spoil movies. See, we're going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes. They will condemn him to death, and they will hand him over to the Gentiles. They will mock him and spit upon him and flog him and kill him. And after 3 days, he will rise again. Okay, people, that was verbatim, chapter 10, verses 33 and 34. And it is immediately after those lines that James and John, the sons of Zebedee, in last week's gospel, who James and John, sons of Zebedee, they've seen Jesus work miracles left and right. It's immediately after those lines that they show how far off the mark their discipleship is. at this point. When Jesus asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" they say, "Pick us to sit at your right and your left hand in your glory." Glory. Jesus just said condemnation, mocking, spitting, flogging, killing, and they saw the makings of glory. Their honor is for, their desire, is for honor. You could say they are blinded by this desire. And their desire is not fulfilled. So it is a big deal when Bartimaeus, the blind beggar, gets asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" He says, "I want to see." Keep in mind, he is a blind beggar. So he could have desired the food that I know I crave after even a half day without enough to eat. He could have desired riches so that he would never have to beg again, or for his family, remember, he's son of Timaeus, to take him back in and care for him. But he threw off his cloak, and I could give a whole other homily on that cloak, and said this. He said, "I want an expanded power to perceive, to assess my surroundings and respond. I want to be me, but more me." His desire is for what he felt in his bones, was for his full flourishing. And the kicker, it's in how Jesus does this particular healing. He doesn't mix spit and dirt and smear it over the guy's eyes like in John. He doesn't say, "Be opened," like the deaf man's healing 3 chapters earlier in Mark, or touch him like the leper 9 chapters earlier. Jesus says, "Go. Your faith has made you well." It's fair to ask, what faith? Bartimaeus didn't say, "I believe you can give me a vision," or "I've prayed my whole life for someone like you." The text tells us Bartimaeus did 3 things. He persisted in asking for mercy. Mercy is the willingness to enter into another's chaos. That's what he's asking Jesus to do, even after he got shushed for asking. 2, he threw off his cloak in response to Jesus's call. And I think that's still in the gospel. That small detail is still in the gospel, because Jesus's call tends to make us vulnerable, exposed. And the 3rd thing Bartimaeus did is he answered Jesus's disarmingly direct question with a desire that is authentic, earnest, and for his full flourishing. That is what faith is, according to Mark's Jesus. Persistence, despite getting scolded for speaking up, shedding how you have hidden yourself when Jesus calls, and boldly naming your desire to flourish. That's faith. Now, James and John, they thought they would flourish if they were, well-positioned once Jesus came to power, because they refused to see how Jesus was already using that power to serve the ones who were outcast. But Bartimaeus believed he could flourish now, here. And that, according to Jesus, is what healed him. That, according to Jesus, is faith. There is no reason to wait. State your desire now. Jesus is saying, your voice and your agency matter. I do not prejudge you. I want to hear what you have to say. So let me close with 2 important caveats. Jesus doesn't give up on James and John, sons of Zebedee, just because they face-palmingly don't get it. It is yet more evidence that Jesus is never about impeccable purity. Jesus is in the mess of human learning and growth, showing the lavish love of a God who will not let you go. And finally, going back. Finally, what does Bartimaeus do once he can see? Our translation says he followed Jesus up the road to Jerusalem. But the same words could be translated followed Jesus in discipleship. It's the same word. So if you see, you follow. And if you follow, the road leads to Jerusalem, which is not a field trip. It's being misunderstood, rejected, dying, and not letting that death be the last word. Are you sure you want to see? Jesus will ask. How will you answer?